Hi, so in this video we're going to take a look at the keyless ignition on the KTM. You know, it's nothing new, it's been around on cars for quite some time, but it's fairly new on bikes. This isn't the first one to have it, it won't be the last one. There's plenty of other bikes now have keyless ignition. But we're going to take a quick look at how it works. You know, I had questions like how do you apply the steering lock, how do you get under the seat, all those sorts of things if you've not got a key. So we'll take a look at that today. So if you're familiar with the system, like I say, if you've had a car with a keyless ignition, it works very similar as long as you're within, I think it's around 1.5 meters to 2 meters of the bike with the fob. Then when you press the start button, the bike will wake up and you can start it. If the key was further away than that, so it's around 3 meters away there, and I try again, nothing happens. The bike won't wake up and it can't be started. So like I say, the distance before the bike will turn on is about 1.5 meters to 2 meters. Any further than that and the bike just won't wake up. So, you know, you don't need to worry about being in a cafe and somebody jumping on your bike and riding off. It's just not going to happen. And, you know, if you're this close to the bike, what are the chances of somebody jumping on it and trying to rob... What are you doing? Get off. Sorry about that. What are the chances of somebody trying to rob your bike when you're this close to it anyway? So what happens if the key fob and the bike get separated once the bike's been started? Well, you don't get any warning on the dash once the two are out of range of one another. This nearly caught me out because I nearly left my key in the garage after I'd started the bike. It's a shame you don't get any warning on the dash to say, like I say, that they've been separated. And the bike won't stop halfway down the road, it won't cut out. I think that's against the law. I think there's some law against stopping vehicles in motion. But yeah, we'll take a look at that. So let's start the bike. I shall walk away from the bike. So now this key fob is well and truly out of range. But as we can see from the dash, you know, there's no indicator on there. The bike's still running, it hasn't turned off. Now I've still got the key fob over there, so well out of range of the bike. As you can see, there's no warning on the dash. What happens if I kill the bike? Nothing, I still get no warning, and I can still start the bike. Now that, for me, is a bit wrong. I think once you stop a bike, if the fob's not in range, it shouldn't allow you to start it again, but it does. The only time it has an effect is when you turn the bike off, like so. So now the key fob's out of range, I won't be able to wake it back up again. As you can see, I'm just getting the flashing immobiliser light. So that's pretty much it for the keyless ignition. The only other thing to mention is something called a relay attack, or this bike has an anti-relay attack. And to know what that is, you need to know what a relay attack is. Basically, like I say, the bike won't turn on if this key fob is out of range. What a relay attack is like two devices, one that you put near the fob and another one you'd put near the bike. And basically, it tricks the bike into thinking that the fob is closer to the bike than it actually is. So you could imagine this was on my house keys and I've got this in my front door. The key fob's like so. Somebody could have one device, put it near the door and go to the bike, whether it be out on the street, on the drive, in the garage or whatever, and it would trick the bike into thinking the key is closer than it is. Like I said, it'd be two devices typically, so you'd have one near the fob and another one near the bike. To combat that, the bike has a feature called an anti-relay attack, and the way that works is when you turn the ignition off on the bike, it tells the fob that the anti-relay feature is on, and after 5 minutes of turning the bike off, this fob essentially goes dead. So it doesn't matter how close it is to the bike, you won't be able to start the bike. Then what you do to then disable that feature is you press the button on the fob, and then you've got 10 minutes from that point on to be able to start the bike. So let's say you come into the bike to ride it for the first time, just like you would a car, typically where you'd unlock a car. You press the button on the fob once, and then you've got 10 minutes to use the bike like you would, and start the bike like you would as normal. The only other thing to mention on there is what happens if you're at a petrol station. You don't want to be getting your fob out. The whole point of having a keyless is that, you know, once you put it in your pocket, you don't need to worry about it. You've got 5 minutes after you turn the bike off before you can turn it back on, before you need to press that. So if you imagine you've gone to a petrol station, you know, you've got your key fob in your pocket, you fill up, you go in, you pay, you come back out. As long as that's within 5 minutes, you'll be able to start the bike. If it's more than 5 minutes, you're going to have to press the button on the key fob to wake the fob up again. So that's how the anti-relay attack works. So how do you apply the steering lock? Because typically you would need a key for that. Well, it's very similar. You know, you still need to turn your bike so it's full left lock, but instead of using the key, you just hold what KTM call the race on button. You hear a click and that's it, the steering lock is on. To take the steering lock off, you don't have to do the opposite of that. You just need the key nearby, and then when you press the race on button, the ignition button, the bike wakes up and the steering lock is disengaged. So the other thing you might need a key for is getting under the seat. With this, you've got a button here. You just press the button and it releases the seat mechanism. You can do that while the bike's on, or you've got up to a minute after you turn the ignition off to release that seat. If for whatever reason your battery on the bike goes flat, or you've not got your key, you can still get to the seat. There's a cable which you can access from this side. Pull on that cable just like a bonnet catch, and that releases that as well. So the bike comes with just the one of these fobs, and then a smaller one which you can use to start the bike. If you ever lost this or the battery went flat, you basically just hold that against the receiver, which is just down here, and then the bike will start. So I think the last thing to touch on is the fuel cap. Typically you'd need a key, wouldn't you, to open the filler cap. With this, it's very similar to, you know, getting access to under the seat. You've got up to a minute after you turn the ignition off on the bike to open the filler cap. No key needed, there's just a flap. Just pull the flap up and it opens like so. So that's it for this one. Hopefully I've answered any questions you might have had about how the keyless ignition system works. I think it works really well. I was a little bit on the fence at first, to be honest, because, you know, it's one of them. It's a bit like curved TVs. You know, they didn't really take off, did they? Just because you can make a curved TV doesn't mean you should. And it's a little bit, I used to think that was a little bit like that with this, you know, because essentially I've gone from having a key and somewhere to keep it on the bike to having a fob and a key, and I've still got a key because of the top box and nowhere to keep it. But the reality is, you know, I've always got adventure clothing on, so I've got plenty of pockets, and I end up just putting it in your pocket like I do, and then forgetting about it until I get home. So yeah, it works great. If you enjoyed this, please consider hitting that like button. Any comments greatly received, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Right, cheers, bye.